That's Leo Callian and The Road on the BBC Asian Network. Just coming up to 10:30. I'm Ankur from Mobeen this week. As I mentioned earlier, we've been talking about body positivity. That's the theme of the programme today. I've got 3 guests with me in the studio. I've got somebody in Birmingham as well who's going to join us shortly on the programme as well. Let me welcome you to my panel today. Raul Samuel is on the show today. Raul, welcome to the programme. You're a plus-size model, is that right?
That's right. Thanks for having me.
No, pleasure. How long have you been a plus-size model now?
About 2.5 years now.
Okay, awesome. And you've been working sort of on campaigns or?
Yeah, that's right. Campaigns, e-coms, magazines, editorials. It's been quite busy.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for hanging with us tonight as well. I've also got Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, who's probably got the name with the most syllables I've ever pronounced, I think, on live radio. Kenny, welcome back to the programme.
Thank you. Chuffed to be back. This is an embarrassing show.
An embarrassing show?
Well, it's about acceptance, it's about physical bodies, it's about fitting in, it's about being different. I had issues. Maybe I should say I have issues.
Well, we'll get into some of those as well. We'll try and get you a couch as well if you need any.
Oh,
any
God, yeah, and a therapist and a stiff drink.
So Kenny is a life coach who we've had on before, known as the Man Whisperer. I think that's a particularly great tagline. I wish I'd known about that name, but he's taken it. Otherwise, I would totally use that as my Twitter handle. Man Whisperer as well. And I've also got Kieran as well in the studio with me. Kieran Tupper, is that the right way to pronounce it? Excellent. Okay, journalist and also a youth worker at the Marcus Lipton Community Centre in Brixton, where you work with young males, and you're also known about your work with social justice and youth perspectives as well.
Yes, I do different bits of youth work around London, to be honest, but and then
sorry, just to interrupt. Do you want to just walk in a little bit into the centre of the mic? That's it. Perfect.
Yeah. So I do bits and bobs of youth work around London, and then write about it basically, and also write about like rap and social issues in London.
Okay. So we talk about body positivity, and I want to just open it up. When were you first conscious about your own body? Because I was thinking about this on my way in today. I thought to myself, when was I first conscious about my own body? I started playing sport at a young age, and then you're in a sort of changing room environment, and probably the first interactions I had with someone from the opposite sex, that made me quite conscious about my body, I think. So they're the sort of 2 stages I remember when I was particularly young. So maybe when I was in sort of high school, maybe then progressing into adolescence when I got into college and uni. I don't know what it was like for you guys.
Mine was very, very clear after refugee camp, moving to a small town in Wales where they'd not really seen people who weren't white. So proper oddity in a lot of ways. And at that age, like 7, 8, it's young. And I was freaked out with things that had happened in life anyway. And it's like, oh my God, now there's this on top. Changing rooms was hell. Absolute hell. So yeah, it was a shock, and it was straight into being different.
Gents?
Yeah, I think I'll have to say change room as well. I remember, I think it was year 8, and then there's just one guy, he was ridiculously athletic. And I was thinking, why am I not like that? And he had all of the girls, I think. So from there, I just started thinking about my body more.
Yeah, Kieran, how about yourself?
I think it was a switch between going from just a state primary school to a couple of years at prep school, and it was like suddenly I had to get in the shower with loads of boys, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I'm not used to this. So you start thinking more critically about how you look, and you're getting undressed. So yeah, it's probably comparable.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in the gym the other day, and I went into a sauna, and a gentleman came in completely starkers, and I was just like, okay, cool. And then it made me think, okay, right. I started looking at myself like, should I be the, I started looking at him, and I was
Did you feel overdressed?
Massively, yeah, with a towel, which was, just covering my modesty. But yeah, it's interesting. I suppose we're talking about childhood then, and I'm talking about, now manhood. And, it creeps over different types. But the term body positivity, what does it mean to you guys? Well, I find it can feel like a bit of an oxymoron as well, because we're talking about body positivity. But whenever body positivity is mentioned, it's about people who are wanting to sort of reclaim their body in a way. That's what Sam Smith said actually in an article recently. We'll talk about that in a second. But what does the term mean to you guys?
I think it's stop comparing yourself to everybody and just be happy with who you are and what you have. I would say it sums it up for me.
So I'd say very, very similar. Acceptance, self-acceptance, rather than I should something. It's, well, actually that's rubbish. I am this. And I found that as soon as I accepted who and how I was, then I could do something with my body rather than it just being this meaty thing that followed me around that I didn't want anything to do with. It's like, now this is my body. What can it do? And what am I going to do with it? Totally life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much the same. Where I think especially the word like compared to someone else, like that idea that you have to compare yourself to what society or other people around you, how they look or how someone should look.
Yeah.
Dismissing that or unlearning that is, I think when you get to a stage of just being cool regardless, then yeah.
Did you feel growing up when there was no social media, was it less of a thing or is it more of a thing now because of social media? Poor social media seems to get a bad rep. It's always like, let's blame social media when you stigmatize the society.
Fair. I think it's fair. I mean, just
Why is it fair?
from a youth work, like from my perspective as a youth worker, working with a lot of teenagers, and regardless of just working with teenagers, but also just reading up and researching and writing about issues affecting young people now, the anxiety that surrounds the young mind that often is hinged upon how they view themselves in regards to other people based on this constant flow of images coming from social media.
Yeah, tell us some of the stories that you sort of hear from some of the youth that you work with.
I was thinking about what I was going to say in terms of my youth work in regards to this issue, and definitely the main thing that just for me personally, I work with a lot of boys in South London who are definitely at the more disengaged, disenfranchised end of the spectrum. And so the idea of like having your hood up, wearing a bally, wearing a mask, like those, I feel like that fits into this because it's like this, you have to cover up, you're so desperate to not be vulnerable, so desperate. And yet that's actually processed a lot of the time as being intimidating, but it's really, really not. It's just vulnerability. And so that for me is the biggest like conundrum at the moment, is the amount of boys that are tempted to cover up their face.
It's interesting. I mean, that vulnerability then gets exposed, I suppose, and people prey on that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going back again to comparing yourself. Especially with social media, people only show perfection and the perfect angles. Especially for a living, I take pictures. I know what Photoshop can do, and then when you're posting it on Instagram, people are going to think, I don't look like that. And then in real life, you see what people really look like. You don't compare themselves as much as you do in social media, so I think it's got a big part to play.
When you went into modelling as well, what was that like for you? Because you're a plus size model, but what's that like as well? Because people will say, well, that's different to being, let's say, a model who's promoting beach or whatever. What's the difference? And just explain the context of that and what that's like.
I think no one's used to it, but it's a kind where it's really relatable, and hence why it's taken off the way it has. And there's massive brands now want to get involved because people are buying the clothes.
They want representation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's more representation there for everybody now. So in terms of that, at first it wasn't easy. I was thinking, what are people going to say? Some people got abs, I don't. But then when you realise it, the impact that it's doing to people with that sort of body type, it's giving them confidence.
It kind of feels like permission, that you're giving people permission to normalise who and how they are. And that is so healthy. Rather than looking around and it's like, what's wrong with me? It's looking around and saying, well, actually, I'm normal and this is healthy.
Exactly. Because I remember when I started, I was looking actually for somebody with my body type that wears clothes that look good on him, so I can feel right. This is how it's supposed to. Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
And then so when I came across Bridge, which is my agency, we started to work together, and then somehow I became that person accidentally for other people. But I know the feeling of what it is to look for somebody to look up to with that body type.
Well, what do you think of that terminology, plus size? Should we be using a different term? Is that something which is not?
That's something that's being discussed across the board, but for now, everybody knows what it means. But I think definitely as it progresses, the term might change, as in with women, it changed to curve. And somehow that's been embraced and it feels empowering. And I don't think plus size represents that as well.
Right.
But it's all about progression for now.
What sort of language could we be using then? What sort of terminology could we use to make it more progressive?
I've heard, it's funny, I've put this to my Instagram, the same question, and I got a lot of quite funny responses. I heard buff, I heard brawn, I heard fed, I heard so it's been across, but we haven't come to one name yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, when you hear about plus size, I just think to myself, well, surely there could be better vocab we could be using, right?
Agreed.
It's almost like it's not normal, it's plus.
Yeah.
Where it's more normal than the old normal.
Exactly. So it should be, and I think that's the stage we want to get at, is to get it where it's normalized. You don't need a special term, you don't need a special section. This is just where everybody just goes there. So
what's your relationship like with your peers? When you're with your friends and you're looking at each other and that, is there pressures amongst your peer group? We talk about social media, but there's a survey which was back in 2016, right? We found on the BBC article where 1,000 boys aged between 8 and 18. 68%, right? They said the biggest sources of pressure for secondary boys to look good came from their peer group, their friends. And I just wondered what you guys make of that, especially, I mean, yourself, Kieran, you work with, kids of that age, I imagine.
Yeah, but when I like talking about this, it's more thinking about my own experience of like, I remember it's actually recently that I've started reflecting on, so I was kind of keen to come on here and talk about this, because I've reflected on like how much going to a school that where I played rugby and played sport and like was expected to sort of fit into the school body,
right,
the student body in a certain way, actually held onto my mind for quite a while. And it's only recently that I've started being like, I don't really care that much if I have a six-pack or not.
Yeah.
Or like if I look a certain way, like I genuinely don't care. But I was telling myself I should care until even a year or two ago. And that was this idea that like, and so I guess reflecting on my practice now with young people and especially teenage boys is like how those ideas actually then translate into manhood, and like when you make that transition from adolescence into manhood, like how actually that can affect your ability to integrate into groups and interact with people.
Yeah. Kenny, what do you make of that?
I think that's the difference between a boy and a man.
Yeah.
I would say the boys compare and compete and survive and come from reaction, where men are more collaborative, accepting, able to respond rather than react. And it's like helping each other out rather than having to prove something and be better. And what I find really interesting about this conversation so far as well is it's about boys and boys, men and men. It's not even about women. And the number of blokes, especially when they get older, just say, well, actually, the women want me. And they're not really that interested in all this effort I have put to look, why have I bothered? I should have got an education.
Raoul, what would you say?
Exactly. It's funny because a lot of my peers now are models with abs and ripped. But when I speak to them about it, there's like, look, your body's so good. It's like, it's perfect how you are. You don't have these anxieties that we do. Like we have to eat this type of food, do this to keep this body, and it's a lot of pressure that's being brought about. But I think having good peers that encourage you encourage them as well, just to be positive, even if they're small or big, just to be positive about themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, interesting stuff. Do get involved in the conversation if you're listening at home, if you're in bed, if you're driving back from somewhere. Do give us a shout, 81869 on the text. Tweet us at BBC Asian Network as well. I've also got Omar who's going to be on the show with us in just a few moments' time. We'll be back with more. Thanks for hanging with us. So we're talking about male body positivity today on the programme. I've got a panel of guests with me in the studio, Kieran, Paul and Kenny, who we're hearing just a few moments ago. I've also got Omar, who's going to join us as well. Omar joins us from Birmingham this evening. You'll know him actually as Mr. Rowe. He's a popular DJ across the Midlands. He's also on Atlas Radio, and he joins me now. Omar, thanks for chilling with us. How are you?
Hey Ankur, I'm alright, thanks.
You good? How's your day?
All good. I'm just listening to you guys, and it's actually very interesting what you guys are saying.
What are your thoughts?
I myself actually probably suffered from body dysmorphia when I was growing up. Like the rest of the guys, in the changing rooms, you see other guys, because I went to a boys' school as well, which probably made it slightly worse. And you just look at other guys and think, you know, they're athletic, and those are the guys that get the girls. And as soon as you can, you start going gym, you want to be like them. And it's a shame, because looking back, you realise that when you're young, that's what you see. And to add to that, you've got social media as well, which, I mean, is a blessing and a curse, however you want to look at it. But, you know, the younger generation especially, they look at it and think, this is how we need to look. This is what we want to look like. And I think one of the other guys said that when you get older, you look back and think, why was I wasting my time doing that, when really and truly people want to know you for you as a person rather than how you look.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting stuff, actually. Yeah.
What do you think the term means to you?
For me, body image is sadly how other people see you. So, you know, for example, I go to the gym myself. I've been going since a young age, and part of it, sadly, is because I like it when people say, oh, you know, you're getting bigger, or oh, your muscles look good, or whatever, which is a shame. So I think it is definitely how other people perceive you physically. But as I get older, I realise that actually there's a lot more to it than that. So, you know, I like to think I'm maturing as a person.
And on your own Instagram account as well, you post, don't you? Tell people about it and what you do on there.
So I like to think of myself as a bit of a joker, and you know, I kind of don't really care what I post in terms of like body wise. Like, I'll literally get my belly out, give it a wiggle, put it on my story, and you know, I get laughs out of it. At the same time, I think that does promote body confidence and body positivity, because, you know, at the end of the day, you are you. And no matter what you look like, you should be proud of yourself, and I think that is my intention, whether it's intentional or not. So, yeah, I think it's important to kind of express yourself in whatever way, and just be proud of who you are and what you carry, literally. So, do
you remember when there was a change in psyche when it came to you and in your own body confidence?
I think it was definitely when social media came about for me, because I wasn't born into it. I kind of grew into it. So I only had Instagram when I was like early 20s. And for me, I think seeing, like, the first thing I was interested in was like bodybuilders and fitness guys. If you type in the hashtag fitness now, for example, you'll see on Instagram so many guys who are just absolutely, you know, hench, however you want to call it. They're humongous, or they're muscly, and you know, you look at it and think, I want to be like that. But the sad truth is, you know, they're photoshopped, you know, they've got the right angles, the right lighting, and it's never going to be achievable. But that was something I didn't learn until, you know, recently. But that was probably when I changed, and I wanted to be like that. It was inspirational, because it did get you in the gym and get you training and stuff, but at the same time, it is quite hard to attain, which is something you have to kind of...
It can make you feel inferior, can't it?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And, you know, insecure somewhat, so...
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've got Kieran, Paul and Kenny in the studio with me as well. And what I wanted to do is branch out the conversation. We talked about a bunch of different themes there as well. So I wanted to narrow down and just spend a bit of time on each of them. And one of the themes in particular that just came up there was social media and I suppose reality TV as well. And you watch programs like Love Island, you see all these people ripped to shred. And you know, they've probably been Instagram models for ages. And they're the people who are then blasted onto TV, national TV, and everybody's supposed to aspire to look like them. What do you guys, all of you, make of that?
Do you know, I wonder whether the issue's kind of about filling a hole, and it's more of an emotional hole and being whole. And so many people are addicted to being liked or being popular, but it's disconnected. There's no person to meet another person and just like be together. It's more how many likes, how many this, how many that, and people are like clicking and stuff. Deal with the emotional hole and share yourself. And surely a lot of this, it sounds to me like it's fear-based. There's not a lot of love there. There's little to no acceptance there. And I dread to think, well, I guess I kind of know the effect that it's having on people, whether it's social media or media. It's like, I need to be that, otherwise I'm not good enough. And I know that so many men come to the men's groups basically saying, what's wrong with me, to themselves or to other people. And it's all handing power out to other people for judgment, rather than holding your own power and extending from yourself into the world. So it's like, do any of these people exist properly? It's scary.
Yeah, I agree. There's a show now on Channel 4, I think it's called Naked Beach, and Ben Witt is one of the first UK models is actually on it as well. And I think shows like that really help this situation, because when you do think of Love Island, you can't help but just compare yourself to think, oh, if I look like that, I'll get a girl like that. So, and then it's not promoting health, which is the purpose of the gym, is to get fit and to get healthy, not to look like that. And to maintain that as well. As soon as those guys leave the island, so a lot of people don't see, they lose that body and they go into deep depression because of it, because they don't look like how that. So you want to promote healthiness, not to avoid that mental health issue.
Yeah. Kieran, I wanted to ask you, we're looking at some of the research into this as well. 80% apparently of adolescent boys are highly concerned with their weight and physique, but men don't want to talk about it. Well, when it comes to the youth that you're working with, is that quite a conscious thing, that they're very reticent, they're very reluctant to chat about these things and open up?
I mean, I'm not going to say that I've tried to hold loads of conversations and workshops about with boys about how they see their bodies. I think I definitely have more conversations about sort of fear and behaviours in their community. That's definitely more normal. But I suppose the way that it plays into it, I've already mentioned the clothing aspect and sort of covering of the face. But then even by extension of that, like this idea of carrying a knife and needing to have a weapon on you to be strong. It's interesting if you speak to someone older in the same community who there's a general shift that seems to have happened where the value on being big and strong in particular communities where, especially where violence is at the moment rife, the idea of having a knife now almost like has become the norm, whereas being strong and being able to have a punch out and settle things that way is less of a way of handling things. And I think that's a subtle way that, like, actually if you can talk about having a knife, that actually trumps physical strength in many ways amongst a lot of boys, which is why you see it arriving in a lot of lyrics at the moment. It signals your strength, it signals your your power over your environment.
So that's what it's about. It's about power.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
It's all about power. And it sounds like it's not about personal power. It's about power over other people. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe. Power over other people, but then also I think just a sense of feel. I think you said just now, feeling something and feeling part of something. And if you can feel part of something, but also then have power over it and have influence over it through whatever means possible, and it kind of is sad that it's resorted to the fact that you have to go to your kitchen and pick up a knife in order to feel that for some boys. But yeah, potentially that is power is the root of the sort of desire there.
And with the boys that you're around, do they have a lot of choice, or are they in this environment and they need to survive this environment, and therefore?
No, I don't think. Yeah, I think that's actually one of the big things that I talk about a lot is the freedom to choose to live. Like, it's very easy to say to like a suburban middle class kid like I was, you know, you've got a lot. I had the choice. There were lots of choices I had to behave, but if you're an inner city kid where you're fearing your walk home from school, then there aren't that many choices for you to have.
So it's easy to point the finger and say it's all about this, it's all about that. But if they can't leave the environment, if they can't afford out, if there are no choices, then what do you say to them?
Yeah, but that's a tough thing to do, to give people like that advice. It's exceptionally hard. I wanted to also just move on to something which I want Omar to contribute with as well. Omar, you know, amongst sort of Asian communities, you're a DJ yourself, and you go to maybe weddings, etc., things like that. What about the pressures, the male pressures to look a certain way when they're having to get ready for their wedding or to get ready for functions, things like that?
I think, if I'm honest, it seems to me that times have changed. So I think you have to look at men and women equally, right, as we do in all aspects of life. And similarly to how when a woman gets ready for a wedding, everything has to be perfect, makeup has to be on point, etc., etc. I think it also goes for the man. They want to look good in their suit, they want to look good, their haircut has to be fresh, etc., etc. So I think it is definitely the same as, if not worse, because I'd say worse because we don't expect it to be the case. In traditional Asian households, you know, men are seen as masculine, burly, whatever, that traditional view of masculinity. But times have changed, and it might not be the case. So, you'd expect a man to not necessarily be like that. But it is the case. So I do agree. I think we are in a generation and at a time where men want to look as good as the next man. And as you said already, and you link it to social media, they look at somebody else on social media and they want to look like that. And you mentioned power as well. I think power maybe of the like. So the comment on Instagram that say you look good, or the like of a photo where you have your your arms out or whatever. And I think talking about power, if you link it to that, I think that would very much be a good point to make.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. We'll be back with you and Omar in just a second, as well as Kenny, Paul and Kieran as well. We're talking about male body positivity as well. Do get in touch with us, 81869 on the text, and do tweet us at BBC Asian Network as well. Get involved in our conversation. Got Kenny, Paul and Kieran in the studio talking about this, and I've got Omar as well, who's joining us all the way from Birmingham as well. I wanted to talk to you, Kenny, just to start off with advice as well. There'll be a lot of people hopefully listening and probably thinking, well, we'll listen to this conversation and it probably affects me, or I'm someone who maybe suffers from anything that we've been talking about today. So in terms of putting your life coach hat on as well, what some of the sort of key aspects or skills to take away from this?
I really think that it is about manning up, but manning up is talking about it. So man up and talk about it. Man up and talk about it with the people around you, but more than that, maybe with the people that have been there and that have passed through it that you can learn from. Maybe even have the audacity to time travel, go into the future and see, where is this leading? Who do I want to be? Where do I want to be? And if that's where I want to be, then work backwards. But I would say if we are going to be products of our environments, then we need to take responsibility for our environments, physically, socially, and the first connection surely is with the self.
So your terminology of manning up is different from the sort of a stereotypical way of manning up, so to speak.
I don't think there's a lot of man stuff in the stereotypical manning up. That's boy stuff. Manning up is being your own man, knowing yourself. And I would say the fastest way to know yourself is to know who you no longer need to be. And a lot of what we're talking about is, who should I be to be okay, to be popular, to be acceptable? And if other people accept me, then I'm allowed to accept myself. That's rubbish. It's the other way around. Don't hand your power out. Own your power and know yourself. And again, it's like, who am I not? Rather than, which is my next act that I need to buy and sell to other people that leaves me out of my life.
Yeah, Raoul, you're nodding there as well.
Yeah, fully agree. We don't talk enough, especially as men. We feel like it's weak. We're showing weakness when we talk. We're not supposed to feel this way. We're not supposed to be emotional. We're just supposed to deal with it, really. And that leads to a lot of issues. And I think in terms with as well, that's when I had a friend I've got a brother and a friend who was obsessed with the gym, and all you actually need to do with it is just talk about it. If he's feeling a certain way, just talk about it instead of trying to kill himself, not eating. And then so definitely, talking is very important.
And there are loads of repercussions with this as well. You talk about body positivity as well. I don't know if you guys have heard of bigorexia. I don't know if you know what the term bigorexia is. So
So when
do you want to explain it?
I vaguely.
I'll help you. But it's sort of about wanting to not look small. You want to look bigger and you want to look better, and you're obsessed with, I suppose, just self-improvement all the time. And you'll go to the gym and you want to have that perfect six-pack, etc. So at the same time, so if we talk about body positivity or being body perfect as well, there are sort of dangerous repercussions to that as well, because people go to extreme lengths to want to have a certain type of physique or a certain type of body as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were talking earlier about his friend in Australia who they would dehydrate and then wrap themselves around cling film, and that would like lower down your waist or cut down body fat.
Don't drink water, wrap yourself in cling film, and try not to pass out on the catwalk.
That's not real.
This is real. This is what they did. look good for the cameras.
Yeah, not great for what's going on inside. I imagine.
Yeah,
Exactly.
My God.
It's a major problem. It's
Do you know what? I feel really bad having said that, because now I have a fear that kids are going to try nonsense like that. Like cling film is the shares on the stock market of cling film is going to soar because of this, and that's not good. You know, people follow this kind of stuff, but yeah, it's like it's so scary what people do for what self-worth, acceptance, being part of, being popular, without vulnerability. But it's vulnerability that's powerful, surely. Maybe it's after a certain stage. Maybe it's, I don't know, 20s or something, when you're out of the yard and you're more into reality.
Exactly. And also, when you do get to that stage where you're still not going to be happy, you're going to want more. You'll be like, oh, I don't want abs, I want the arms as well now, and the chest. And when does it end, really?
I've seen the flip side to this as well with let's say in the plus size industry as well, and you have people who are saying bigger is better, bigger is beautiful as well. But I've seen some people who would then say, well, actually, you're just promoting obesity, or you're just promoting an unhealthy lifestyle. Well, what do you guys make of that?
That is a massive thing as well. What is that we promote health. You need to be healthy, and that's what fitness is. I still go to the gym, but it's not to get ripped or this insane body. It's to just be healthy. If you are obese, then I do say just see a doctor, get help, ECT. But yeah, we're definitely promoting healthy living.
I think the problem is there's a limit to everything, but some people just don't know where to stop, and it goes both ways. So whether you want to get bigger or skinnier or musclier, I think it's important to understand where you should stop, and as it's, you know, relating to weight, maybe where the healthiest point is to be, kind of thing. Do you agree with that?
I think that is so spot on. And surely any friend should ask any other friend why are you doing this? And it's not necessarily a challenge, it's an inquiry. And then they might think, well, actually, yeah, you're right, it's enough. I am enough now. Or I don't need to be bigger, or I don't need to be smaller. But why, rather than going all therapy or crowding them, why is enough to kind of pop the bubble and get real?
I think the issue is, though, a lot of people don't feel they can talk to their friends or family about that. And they take to social media for that acceptance, and they've come to rely on that kind of acceptance. So they'll post a picture of whatever in whatever, and the amount of response to that is what makes them happy in a way. And I think that is what people need to kind of learn, is not acceptance, and should not be the way forward if you want to be happy in life.
Yeah, and I was going to bring you in as well, Kieran, to talk about it. If you look at what these guys are saying, from a mental health perspective as well, from a standpoint of view, if many men aren't talking about this, and they're just sort of burying their head in the sand as well, the negative implications of that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and again, going back to the social media thing, which I think, regardless of age, the more our society and societies around the world become, like, individuals' sense of self becomes aligned with this idea of getting likes. I think at the expense of other types of affirmation that we would have developed over thousands of years, and suddenly that's been disturbed by this technology. I think that is like, and I can feel it myself, you know, the idea that you require some sense of self by looking down and looking at likes and checking your Instagram or checking your Twitter or whatever. And I resent myself quite often for that. So it's like it's this battle of trying not to let yourself fall victim to that. But as a professional that relies on these things, it's often difficult not to. So it's like trying to align with them to an extent of like professional benefit, but then also save yourself personally and psychologically, you know. So it's a difficult one. And if you don't talk about that, or you're not willing to talk about it and just be on a level, and I'm going through that, a lot of people are going through that, I think that it can probably develop over time.
I'll be curious if any of our listeners at home are listening to this and can empathise with that. Do get in touch, 81869, or tweet us at BBC Asia Network of your own experiences or people you know as well, because I meet someone like Kieran, confident young man, intelligent young man, and yet he's talking about these, insecurities that we all have, but we're afraid to talk about it as well. And the fact that he's coming on national radio to talk about it is impressive, I think. But there's so many who'll be listening right now and be too afraid to come on, maybe, or feeling too vulnerable as well. And that vulnerability, as men, we don't want to ever show that vulnerable side. We're supposed to be stoic and supposed to be people who are not going to show any weakness.
And I wonder whether that's the journey from masculine, this is the cheap line, from masculine to masculine, because who are you behind the mask? And at some stage, you're going to age, you're going to mature, you're going to get real, you're going to come to. How long can, it's not sexy to be the oldest swinger in town.
Straight from the man whisperer.
Exactly.
I like that. The man whisperer. He's speaking. He's preaching. Okay, awesome. If you listen to the man whisperer and you want to get his advice as well, I think he's a smart, intelligent man to speak to as well. Do get in touch with us, 81869. You can tweet us at BBC Asian Network as well. Now let me introduce Sheikh to the programme. Sheikh's one of our listeners and wants to contribute to the conversation this evening. Sheikh is a young film director, screenwriter and producer as well. Sheikh, welcome along. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself, Mobeen?
Oh, this is Ankur, by the way. Mobeen's having a night off.
Sorry.
So they parachuted me in. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Just tell us a little bit about your journey as well.
So I used to be really overweight while I was in university, and it was only after one of my best mates. He would always pick on me for my weight, but for a good reason. So I'd actually do something about it because no one ever called me out about my weight. And I was always comfortable with being overweight, but until I actually lost it, I realized how much better I felt. Positive I felt about my body. Once I made that improvement.
Did other people tease you about your weight, did you say?
No one ever teased me about my weight. I was just always, I was just overweight, but I just had the one friend that would call me up on it.
Yeah.
But
you didn't ever lash out at him or anything like that?
I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did because he made me take a positive step in my life. And I feel much better about the way I look now.
That's good. I mean, that goes back to the original points at the start of the programme, at the start of the conversation with the guests I've got in the studio. We were talking about how the influences from things like social media, celebrities, but your own friends and your peer group are crucial.
Yeah. Well, for me, at the same time, even though I've lost all this weight, there's still aspects of my body that I'm not happy with. And that's because obviously you see male models on Instagram and on magazines and you think, I should look like that. And the thing with them is they're probably photoshopped to hell because, I'm in this industry, so I understand, airbrushing and touching up models. So there's a unnatural level of beauty that can't be achieved physically. And I think that messes with people's perception of how they should look. And to a certain point, the things that you're not happy about with your body, like that are out of your control, you should learn to kind of accept.
Yeah, two things I want to pick up on as well. The conversations you had with your friend, what was he saying to you? I'm curious to know the language he used and how he got through to you. Because I think a lot of people listening out there will really learn something and benefit from it, hopefully.
Well, he would call me a fat, I don't want to swear on the radio, fat B word.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as a joke, like every time, say we're in the park and he'll start doing some exercise stuff and I'll join in and I'll be like, oh no, I don't really feel like it because I was never into physical activity. And then he'd call me out on it, you fat B word. Yeah. And eventually that actually just motivated me. And even though I've lost all this weight, he still calls me the same thing, but it's ironic now.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually, I would say I'm even fitter than him now.
So he must be he must be proud of you now.
Yeah, I'm glad he called me out on my weight because no one else did, and everyone was I think they didn't want to hurt my feelings, so they never said anything.
They probably thought it was quite mean or nasty.
Yeah, but he saw it as like, you know, you need to do something about your weight, because I've been friends with him since childhood.
Yeah.
So he's seen me gain weight over time.
And those relationships are different, aren't they? You know each other from back in the day, so you guys are boys. You know how to talk to each other. You know.
Yeah, there's no malice behind it at all.
Exactly. But how can then other friends potentially learn from that as well? And how can, because there can be instances where you could be good friends or whatever, but you could take it the wrong way. So it can depend on the friendship group or the relationship.
Friendship, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the other point I wanted to pick up on with you as well, you work in the industry which is film, and then there are a lot of, there are a lot of aspects of that industry which are very superficial, and you have to look a certain way. What are the experiences of let's say casting, for example, that you've come across?
Actually, I can give a really recent. I do photography as well, and I recently did a photo shoot with some female models. Obviously, I know this is male body competitors, but it's just an example. And they're very good looking. They're very fit. Two of them are personal trainers, so of course, and they do this for a full-time living to look good. And even the pictures I took of them, they weren't happy with some of the pictures. And it's kind of funny because they train their whole lives to look good, and even they weren't happy with the pictures, and they wanted it to be touched up, which is a shame because I thought they were really good looking. They didn't need any touching up, but they asked for like certain things to make them look thinner, and I don't know. It's a little sad because it's like other people are going to see those pictures and think, oh, this is how I should look, but the way they look in the pictures can't be obtained naturally as it is.
What do you think, Kenny? I mean, that's quite worrying, isn't it? If people are aesthetically beautiful or look good, but then with their own insecurities are going to stop them from, I suppose looking their best.
Followers are going to see those pictures and think, oh, I wish I looked like that.
Yeah. Do you know, the thing that's running through my mind is other people can only treat you in a way that you're already treating yourself. And maybe this is about the heart muscle rather than, I guess, making a cage out of muscles in order to survive, and no one can meet you. So, yeah, it's sad. It's got a time limit, and I would imagine that those who look their best and who are peaking are probably the most scared that they're going to lose it. It's just so full of anxiety. Where's the fun? Where's the love? Where's the connection? What's the point? Time to get real.
Guys?
Yes, it sounds so vain, doesn't it? Sounds so vain, self-centered that even it's like the problem is not physical. It's definitely a mental problem, and until we address that and realize that no matter what, if this problem is in our minds, no matter how fit we're going to get, it's not going to go away. So we need to address the mental factor of it.
It's almost like these obsessions with our body. It's almost like we're trying to avoid confronting real, emotional traumas that we might have.
And the funny thing is, when...
I don't think anyone cares as much as well, as you would think. Like, say you're with a partner, and you might be more worried about your weight than she would be worried of your weight. It's like you create this problem in your own head, thinking, oh, why she doesn't like the way I look.
A lot of people who eat at some level don't realize that overeating helps them to digest food and avoid digesting emotions. A lot of people who starve don't realize that they are starving themselves of love. They're trying not to feel, and they get so vulnerable that they kind of feel like, okay, now I feel thin, now I'm sweating, now I'm whatever. And it's got nothing to do with the way that they actually look to other people. It's this image in their mind's eye, and it could have come from Disneyland or some computer game they're playing. It's not real.
Mike, do you want to jump in?
I'm thinking... I think the problem is, because we live in a society where image is everything, it's going to be hard to kind of change the mentality of people, because what everyone's saying is definitely correct in that we need to kind of look past what we look like, the image we portray, and how we appear to other people. But who's going to teach that to people? Who is going to let people know. You've got body positive models like, I don't know, Ashley Graham, Letitia T. I know ladies, like Raoul himself. He's a good ambassador for, people who don't need to worry so much about image or just be comfortable in themselves. And I think that's probably the next step that needs to be taken. How can people change their mentality to be less like that and more like this? Do you agree?
Yeah. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, but it's quite hard.
Yeah, because I think mentally, if it's being shoved down your throat from every angle, how do you escape from that? And how are you strong enough to then block that out?
I think it needs accepting, because pushing it away, blocking it out is actually feeding it. Accept what's going on, surely, what's going on in the media, what's going on with you. Accept it and make a conscious choice. What will my relationship to this be? How can I actually include myself in my life? How can I exist in my life? How can I exist in my friendship groups rather than who and how do I need to be? And that's totally excluding. It's like, again, handing power over to other people. It's who am I and how do I choose to live my life? Easier said than done for some people that don't have a lot of choice. But surely even just being in the question will attract someone or something, or an inspiration, a way out. And look at the older people that have been through this. What happened to them?
Yeah, 100%. Do get involved in our conversation. We've got a little bit of time left. We're going to come back after this song. 81869 on the text, or tweet us at BBC Asian Network. We're talking about body positivity all evening. Thank you so much for my panel who've been in the studio with me. I've had Kenny, Paul and Kieran with me, and I've got Mr. Omar as well as Sheikh on the line as well. Before I let all of you go, let me start off with you, Sheikh. A piece of advice or piece of positivity you could give our listeners.
You know what? It's going to sound so cliche, but learn to love yourself. It's as simple as that. Like, learn to accept even the aspects of you that you don't like, because that's how you were born.
Yeah, I like that.
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Omar?
I think my piece of advice would be, the next time someone tells you that you look a certain way or you don't look a certain way, rather than respond as you probably normally would, just think to yourself, does this person's opinion of you matter? And then move on and carry on with yourself, basically.
And it's easier said than done, isn't it? I like that advice. That's the hardest part, isn't it? Trying to block that opinion out.
I think it is, but but I think that's something, as you get older and you kind of learn to kind of not really give a damn about what other people think, and I think that's important. I've done that myself over the past few years, and I'm quite proud of that fact.
And how did you do that?
Essentially, you kind of first of all, besides getting rid of the people that are maybe bad for you or kind of do bring that negative vibe, you just kind of learn that actually everyone has their opinion. You kind of accept that it might not be in agreement with yours, and you just kind of think, okay, that's fine. You're entitled to yours, I'm entitled to mine. I'll do what I got to do. I'm happy, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Kieran, what about yourself?
Yeah, not that dissimilar to what was just said, but this idea of being very much in control of the story you tell about yourself, and then how that carries you through life, and how that allows you to act towards people, I think is really important. I think since I've been more conscious of just taking the wins throughout my day, even if it's small little wins, of just capturing and noting down things that make me feel good and things that allow me to kind of have fulfillment from, on a daily basis, doing that. And I'm a writer, so I do it in diary form. That's my way of just making sure I capture those things, and that it can be a really, really great foundation for just being in control of your narrative. And then I think that can have a really good impact on your outlook. So that's my way anyway.
Raoul, I suppose role models are crucial and key, aren't they, as well?
Yeah, they're very key. I think the best advice I'll give is be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And that's something that my dad told me once. And it's true, when you do find a good role model to look up to, somebody that you can relate to, it does change everything. So search for that. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be anyone.
Who's a role model you look up to?
Role model, he's listening. He's probably gonna get happy about this. Probably my brother.
Yeah. Why?
Just because he feel it's like he's got a good balance between fitness and happiness. He's just got a good balance in between.
He's got a good
Yeah.
happy medium, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
Yeah,
riding that
that's
wave.
what you. Yeah,
What's his name?
Elias.
There you go, Elias. Respect.
There you are.
Cha-ching. You can sort you out afterwards.
exactly. Take me McDonald's.
Kenny?
Ditch the Viagra eye drops. It's not about looking hard. Let the love shine through your eyes. First, know yourself. Second,
Wait a
share
minute, I
yourself.
need a pen. Ditch the Viagra.
Because do you know what? At some stage, either you're going to get in deep trouble and it's going to be too late, or you're going to grow up. So choose how you want to grow. Surround yourself with those people, and you let it shine through your eyes. People fall in love with your soul, and that's what shines through your eyes.
Awesome. They're the words the man whisperer. Ditch the Viagra eye drops. That is going to be my new Twitter handle if I can change that. I love that. Jens, thank you ever so much. You've been awesome.